Now that we're 4 seasons deep into the Rock Galactic, I'm pretty concerned about some features moving forward. Not all of it's bad though, in fact, most of it's good. The Performance Pass and Cosmetic Tree have always had neat cosmetics, and adding this stuff for free is pretty much unheard of in this kind of game. Non-season related features have always been really fun. New weapons was crazy to see. Grenades and cave variety add a ton to the game. Little things from Season 4 like jet boots, enemies, and the arcade machine are really cool changes too. But when it comes to the rest of the season terminal, there really needs to be some improvement. Before we go any deeper, I want to make something perfectly clear before someone runs into the comments within seconds of watching this video and types out a thesis on why I hate DRG now. It isn't that deep. This is my favorite co-op game of all time. And if the last 3 years of videos covering everything I love about this game wasn't proof of that, then I don't know what is. My goal here is to bring attention and provide insight on parts of the game that could be improved. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk about season events. For those who don't know, these are random chance encounters that can spawn in any mission in the game. They're obviously themed around the season, and you complete them and deposit your rewards. Then those rewards turn into performance points and bonus script in the terminal, which unlocks cosmetics. Basically, they're a big part of how you progress through the season. Currently on deck in Critical Corruption, we have breaking open meteors, both big and small, and fighting corruptors. It's worth mentioning that I'm not talking about the lithophage cleaning mutator, as it's technically not a season event in this case. It doesn't reward plague hearts. It does suffer from some of the same problems though. During Season 4, you're asked to collect 90 plague hearts in total to get all the bonus script. You can get anywhere from 1 to 4 plague hearts per event, meaning it takes the player quite a while to get all of these. And here's where the problems start. Currently, I've gotten all the bonus script in Season 4. I finished this at level 55 in the pass. I've still got a lot to go. And these events still give experience for the pass, so they're incentivized. But at this point in every season so far, I've been tired of doing the season event to progress the pass every single time. This has been the case across the board, but it's especially felt in Season 2 and 4, where the theme doesn't change, so some of the events are carried over from the previous season. I ran a poll on my channel asking viewers if they are also tired of current season events. Over 4,000 people voted, and 66% of players said yes and 34% said no. Here are a few comments I thought were worth mentioning from that poll. Most events take way too much time for what you get in return. I'd say prospector data deposits are definitely the worst, but it feels weird GSG keeps adding features that make missions longer for very little enjoyment or XP bonus. Small meteors are definitely the most annoying, with the corruptor and meteors in general just being a little too common for my liking. It's interesting, quite a few people actually mentioned that the small meteors were annoying to them. This might have to do with them being kind of spread out when they land, and it's kind of annoying to track them all down. Maybe combined with the fact that you don't get a plague heart from all of them, you only usually get one. Or maybe it's just that they're the most common event and people find that annoying. The next comment says, as much as I love DRG, I can't bring myself to play it for any more hours if the new stuff gets stale in like 4 or 5 missions with it. And finally, I have one more comment. I love DRG's core gameplay loop enough to play with the new content. That being said, I'm over rock pox at this point. I don't want them to go away, but I'm most definitely ready for something new. A couple people shared their appreciation for the big meteor cracking objective and that the time to complete matches the reward very nicely. And I have to agree with that. It is probably the most solid of all these season events so far, with Rival Signal being up there for me too, because it's just kind of silly and fun. Each season incentivizes doing as much of these events as possible, running them dry way before you've reached level 100. And even if you do want to avoid them, which only a small amount of players do, it's hard to do so because they're just so common. I'd love to be proven wrong here, but I don't think there's a way to stretch these events over the whole time to complete the pass and have them still be fun for everyone by the end. It's just too much of doing the same thing for 6 months to a year, depending on the event. Here's the funniest part of this whole situation though. The opposite problem is also true. Once the theme changes, these events are barely even in the game. During Plaguefall and Critical Corruption, I have only run into a handful of the previous rival events to the point where I forget they're in the game. They're basically like the Iowa of Hoxies, and I live there, so trust me when I say everyone forgets about Iowa. Just to make sure, I asked you all how often you see the events from Season 1 and 2 now. The results line up with what I'm experiencing. 7% of people say they see the events all the time or commonly see the events, And then the rest of them say they sometimes see the events, that's 51%, and 42% say they almost never see them. I grabbed a few comments from this for some more context. I have played 270 hours of this game since Season 4 dropped, and I've only seen a data deposit once and 3 antenna hacking events. The spawn rate isn't high enough to justify the work that went into them. I don't think I've seen any data deposits since Season 3. I've only seen the Prospector once in my 100 hours. I've only gotten the antenna 3 times in hundreds of hours. Started playing in late Season 3, around a month before Season 4. Currently, I have over 100 hours in the game and saw a data deposit once and no prospectors. So yeah, pretty much never. This system is inefficient at re-implementing season events back into the game. The most frustrating part as a player is I don't really hate any of these mechanically, but the quality doesn't change the fact that during the season they're too prominent and you can't get away from them, and then after the theme changes I can barely appreciate them because they never show up. It's sad because I think a lot of the design that went into these parts of the game is good and interesting. Most importantly, these aren't small parts of the update either. They've been a headline feature across every season for a reason. Coming up with an idea, implementing them well into gameplay, creating concept art and then eventually turning that into a model and then play testing it to make sure it feels fun and doesn't like explode the game or whatever. And then if it does have problems that make the game all blow up and stuff, you gotta fix them. It takes a while. I made some more polls surrounding the seasonal content, asking players what their favorite part of each season was. The highest amount of votes a season event got was 19%, and that was the big meteor impact, while the rest of them were in the range of 2 to 3%, which is even smaller than I thought it would be. I get that new weapons and grenades are going to be more desirable, but that's exactly my point. Weapons and grenades are always relevant to the game in the same way, whether you're playing today or a year from now. Season events take a lot of time and effort similar to these features, but they don't add anything permanent to the game. They come, overstay their welcome, and then they go. With that out of the way, I want to provide suggestions on what I think could improve this situation instead of just saying it doesn't work and moving on, because that doesn't really feel like it's helping anything, and it's fun to come up with ideas that I think might improve it. Firstly, move all the previous season events into a place where they're used better. Rival Robots stuff could be moved into Sabotage and retrofitted as alternate objectives in these missions, swapping spots with data deposits before fighting the Caretaker. If not that, then just make rival events spawn more frequently on this mission type. Lithophage events could be grouped together in their own mission type. These events would also work great as secondary objectives and deep dives. After that, for future seasons, move away from creating large-scale random events and get rid of the bonus script system. The best case scenario for new events like these would be during holidays. They're only active for a few weeks, which is just the right amount of time to have stuff like this around. They could either reward holiday cosmetics instead of having new assignments that you have to do, or even give performance points during a season. This would make holidays a hell of a lot more exciting when they're active, and they'd obviously be removed with the rest of the holiday-themed stuff. An example I thought of was during Oktoberfest, you could come across a pile of kegs of best-worst beer in a mission. Hold E to call down a rocket, and then you have to bring the kegs over to it and strap them on. Once all the kegs are attached, the rocket takes off, saving the holiday from being a beerless disaster. Anyways, moving back to season events. Instead of adding these large-scale things that we've gotten in every season, add things that fit within the theme, but most importantly, don't get phased out. Something as simple as adding new secondary objectives, mutators, passive creatures, enemies, or minerals like compressed gold. This would be far less fatiguing for players since it's not incentivized to only do these because you get script for doing them, and also it's always impacting the game the same way no matter if the season's over or not. The next thing I want to talk about is the season terminal. In its current state, it's not taking advantage of all the content Deep Rock has to offer. Right now there are 4 different types of challenges. Play one of these 2 classes, mission types, or biomes. The last challenge is tied to the current season event in some way, rewarding script. This system has not changed at all across every season so far. These are a huge factor in guiding what a player does each time they boot up the game. Anytime I'm starting up Deep Rock, I go to check my challenges first and I prioritize doing them. Having to do the same 2 mission types 5 times or get a lithophage outbreak more often than not does not take advantage of the absolute boatload of content that would work as a challenge in this game. In future seasons, at least add more challenges. Have players use certain weapons if they're unlocked, collect certain minerals, do specific mutators, do double mutator missions, play anomalies like low grav or rich atmosphere, use certain grenades, kill a specific enemy type a certain amount of times, do a certain secondary objective, eat like 8 bars of soap or something. I don't know, just add more of these to the game. In my opinion, this isn't the preferable answer. I would rather they do something else and take inspiration from another game that a lot of people who play DRG also like. Can you guess what it is? Team Fortress 2 has a contract system. For those who haven't played TF2, this is a way to unlock weapons and cosmetics by completing challenges. These usually surround specific maps, game modes, classes, or weapons. And, you do the challenge and you get the reward. Each contract has 3 objectives that vary in difficulty. Creating a new page on the season terminal that functions similar to contracts in TF2 would be way more entertaining than grinding out the same season event for the whole season or doing the same challenge for a 3rd time this week. Then you can move season progress to contracts, providing players script, performance points, and maybe even season cosmetics through that. Each contract would have multiple challenges to complete, each varying in difficulty. Also, some of them should be kind of silly and fun, because what is Deep Rock without being a little goofy? Progress in contracts would only be rewarded on missions that are completed successfully, and this is a very important detail so that players don't just end the mission themselves or try to die to end it faster. Progress should be saved if it's deselected. This would allow players more wiggle room to play what they want, and also let players change to what their friends are doing. Advancing contracts would also be shared between players, so if 2 people have the same contract active, they both add to each other's progress. I cooked up a few examples of these, although the numbers are very rough. I have no idea if they make sense at all, but I'm trying to show you this concept, and I'd rather not sit here and debate about whether or not the numbers are balanced. The first example is an on-site refining contract. Here you'd have to repair 20 pipe leaks for one, kill 50 enemies while riding on a pipeline, and kill an enemy by calling a pump jack onto it. Here's an example of a biome-related one for Azure Weald. Visit Azure Weald 3 times, pet 5 Hexawings, and ride on a cave angel for a full minute. Next up is a weapon contract. If the player doesn't have the weapon unlocked yet, provide it to them while the contract is active, and remove it if necessary when the contract is completed or inactive. My example for this is the jury-rigged boomstick. Here you'd have to kill 100 glyphids, kill 5 swarmers with 1 shot, and eliminate a dreadnought using only the jury-rigged boomstick. Weapon contracts could also provide cosmetics specific to that weapon, sort of like a little trophy you get for completing the challenge. There could even be contracts for weapons with overclocks, supplying both the weapon and the overclock to players who don't have them while it's active. Maybe even reward players with said overclock on completion. For example, a hoverclock M1000 contract could have kill 30 enemies while hovering, prevent fall damage with hoverclock 5 times, and get 3 kills in a row without touching the ground. The best part about all this is you could make multiple contracts for pretty much everything in the game. Classes, overclocks, weapons, support tools, perks, biomes, mutators, mission types, seasonal content, new content. Hell, even the pickaxe could have multiple of these. Obviously, during one season, there wouldn't be contracts for everything imaginable in the game. Just supply enough to progress through all of the cosmetic tree and level up the performance pass at whatever desired rate. And anything that didn't make it in that season could be prioritized next time. Regardless of how this is done, some iteration on season challenges would provide more to do each time you play. The current season challenges feel neglected, almost like passive things that you do other than slightly limiting your class and mission type for the day. Seeing this evolve further and take advantage of the entire game would be a huge improvement. And that's everything I want to talk about in this video. There are a few concerns I didn't mention, such as the cargo crate loot pool getting pretty huge to the point where it's ridiculous how long it takes to get through all of it. But personally, I felt like these problems would be better fit for another video, so maybe I'll make it in the future, who knows. Let's do a little recap once more, do a little TLDR for, to cap the video off. Each season so far has incentivized players to interact with new seasonal content as much as possible until they've finished the pass, whether that's through season events or challenges. In turn, making all the season events and stuff like the lithophage mutator way more repetitive than they should be before completing the season. Then once the next theme rolls around, most of the seasonal content is lost to a rare chance of happening, being underutilized for how much time was dedicated to building them. Future seasons need to prioritize adding features that will never phase out of the game and ask players to interact with more aspects of DRG during a season, adding challenges for old content along with the new, whether that means more challenges in the current system or preferably something larger like a contracts page with multi-step complex challenges and provide season rewards through that instead of just a season event bonus. Either way, I hope Ghost Ship Games can find a way to breathe more life into the season terminal and make it take advantage of everything this game has to offer. I care a lot about this game. I see so much potential in seasons. Both of the themes have been super cool. The Plague theme is one of my favorite things they've ever done in this game, but it needs to evolve next season because these are all starting to feel the same and have the same problems. Just before I wrapped up this video, Ghost Ship announced a developer broadcast for October 5th, which is a little less than a couple weeks away. They're going to go over publishing stuff along with new board game expansions, but also plans for Deep Rock Galactic in the future. So maybe we'll see some changes to the season structure in Season 5, or maybe announced here at this developer broadcast, who knows? Just wanted to put this in here before I wrap up this video so everyone knows when this broadcast is happening. Thank you for letting me talk way too much about this. It means a lot that you watched all the way through this video. I feel like I've been writing this one for ages now, so I hope it resonates with players, Greenbeard or Gray, and also the developers of the game too. Thank you to all my friends who listen to me rant about this video and all my ideas for like a week. Sorry about that. Also, thank you to other DRG content creators and long-term players who were hugely helpful in getting other perspectives. And thank you for voting in the polls. That was very appreciated. If you have any suggestions or ideas on what you'd like to see changed or added in future seasons, throw them in the comments. It'd be neat to see what you've got cooking up. And finally, thank you to the patrons who support me and what I make. If you want to have your name appearing all fancy and Helvetica around it at the end of my video, you can head to Patreon and give me a few bucks and you'll be up there. It's a huge help in supporting future videos, and also, it's cool to have your name up there. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Rockin' Stone.